The next GNF session will be a very special one because it will be a session that will feature our distinguished space flyers. And of course, this is the one-off opportunity for all of you also to address your most urgent questions to the astronauts using our Slido system. So please do use it, send up questions, upvote them, and I will be happy to direct as many as possible to our distinguished panel. Now, the title of this GNF is IAF International Astronaut Session, Life Between Worlds, the Astronaut's Experience. And it is my distinct pleasure now to call up on stage one by one our distinguished astronauts. First and foremost, Mr. Rakesh Sharma, if you could come up. He's India's first astronaut. Rakesh flew aboard the Soviet Soyuz T-11 mission in 1984, a former India Air Force pilot. With his mission, he marked a milestone in India's conquest of space. Rakesh, welcome. Next, I'm pleased to call up Alpa Gezeravci. Alpa is Turkey's first astronaut, and he flew on the International Space Station last year in 2024 as part of the Axiom 3 mission, marking a milestone in Turkish space exploration. Welcome, Alpa. Next, Haza Al-Mansouri, the first Emirati astronaut. Haza spent 8 days on board the ISS in 2019, becoming a national hero and a symbol of the UAE's growing ambition of space exploration. Welcome, Haza. Next, Sirisha Bandla, an aerospace engineer and commercial astronaut. Sirisha became the second woman of Indian origin in space when she flew on Virgin Galactic's Unity 22 mission in 2021. Welcome, Sirisha. Next, Michael Lopez Alegria, a veteran NASA astronaut and record-holding spacewalker. Michael now leads commercial space missions with Axiom Space and commanded the first ever all-private crew to the ISS in 2022. Next, Aitan Stibe. As Israel's second astronaut, Aitan flew on Axiom 1 mission in 2022, which was commanded by Michael, promoting science and education through the Rakia mission during his 17-day stay on the ISS. Welcome, Aitan. And last but not least, we have two more. Angad Pratap, an accomplished test pilot with the Indian Air Force. He is one of the astronaut designates for the Gaganyaan mission, and he represents a new generation of Indian space pioneers preparing for the country's first crewed space mission. Angad, welcome. And now, last but not least, Gopichan Totakura, an entrepreneur and pilot. Gopichan became the second Indian-born space traveler. He was flying on Blue Origin's New Shepard program on a suborbital mission. An applause for all our distinguished panelists here. Thank you. Such a pleasure to sit up here with you. Let me start, of course, with our veteran and hero here in India, Rakesh. You have flown into space more than 40 years ago, and still today, and I see you walking around here in this convention center, people are getting fanatic when they see you. They all want to have a selfie with you. It's really exciting to see this. I would ask you a question. As first Indian to fly in space in 1984, how did you personally carry the weight of these national expectations to you? And how do you see your legacy shaping then the development of India's space exploration program?
Well, I must confess that I was not very well prepared for what to expect after the space flight. Of course, I was prepared what to do during the space flight, but the kind of impact the space flight itself had on our countrymen was an eye-opener. Just to put it in context, television didn't have a very wide footprint, but a year before I flew, we had the television spread quite a bit. So this was streamed live in every living room, and I'm sure that even our countrymen did not expect to see science fiction come alive, because till then it was something out of this world, and they were seeing their own countrymen as part of that. So I was quite unprepared after when I returned, the kind of impact it had made in the collective imagination of our people. Now, as far as the legacy is concerned, that's too big a term. I would really not like to identify myself with that. It's just that there's been a 40-year gap, and at the end of 40 years, I think our countrymen are quite excited and prepared to see Angad and his colleagues, which is the next lot of Indian astronauts. And this is part of the success which ISRO has achieved over these years, because now is the time ISRO felt that we need to go to the next level after having realized the earlier aims of utilizing space technology for the benefit of our countrymen. So they are excited now, and yes, they haven't forgotten me, because there has been nobody else in between. So I think we are in for some exciting times, not only in our country, but even otherwise, because we are getting ready to do stuff which we've never done before, which is to colonize the moon first and then Mars.
Well, thank you very much. I would like, yeah, please go ahead. I would like to ask also two of the first-time flyers, Haza and Alpa. I mean, how did you manage to carry the load of all these national expectations, being the first national astronaut? Who wants to go first?
It's a pleasure to be here, and it's really amazing. Human space flight is really something out of this world in terms of the impact that it has in humans and also in generations to follow. We saw that impact in different countries, and in UAE it was something that we felt like in my return to my homeland, and after the flight, the kids were there happy and saying that we want to be an astronaut, you know. So it felt for us like Apollo era in UAE at that time. And it's a big responsibility, because the things that we trained on, the things that we done on board the station, the experiments, we have to share all of these knowledge and all of these experiments with everyone on ground here, not only in UAE, but in the whole countries around the world, because it is important to share this knowledge, to spread the word of exploration and the importance of that and the impact on the generations to come. Today we met kids at the hotel, at the lobby, and they were like, they are from India, and they recognized me, and it was really something that to me is amazing, because they felt that when they saw the blue jacket or blue suit, they felt that this person does not belong to one country. He belongs to everyone. So that's amazing to feel that and to have that impact in everyone. So that's really something great.
That's great. That's great. Alpa.
Christian, thank you so much for the question. It's a really important question, actually. And dear guests, welcome. It's a great pleasure for us to have the chance to be able to meet with you all today. When it comes to Turkey, we have a different story than our equivalent countries over here. It's because even though we were engaged as a country who have been working in the space arena, but just the satellites, it was our very first manned space mission on our centennial. And unfortunately, that coincidental time that we decided to make it on our centennial came up with another unfortunate coincidence, which is an earthquake. On the 6th of February 2023, the Republic of Turkey has experienced the biggest earthquake disaster in its history. And the decision was already made. And when you experience this kind of a disaster, you are going back to the Maslow's triangle. Nobody cares what your ideals, what your really dreams about, to inspire your next generations and everything. Your question and decision is being questioned. So our governments were really challenged with its decision that was going to really inspire our next generations, while the people were staying there without a home, without a food, even though the government really provided all this required humanitarian help that they need from the day one. So at the end, after a really difficult amount of time of questioning this decision, they standed really strong behind their decision, telling that if we focus only today's difficulties, then we would be stealing from the dreams and the nature of our next generations. So they really stood strong with that, and we would really appreciate Axiom Space's support as well in that manner, in that decision, to how to handle that. So after returning back from the mission, my initial responsibility was to keep touring and traveling all around the country and letting the people why this decision and why this mission was really needed for our next generations. Why we needed to do that. And up until so far, within the last 15 months, I have been to more than 160 cities and executed more than 350 events so far. And we keep saying, until we make this unusual field of practice up in the space, make it usual in every mind of our children, we will continue to travel and meet with them and let them know why we need to make it there to the space in order to maintain, in order to keep this sustainability term really strong here on Earth, because everything that is being made up there is reflecting strongly back to the Earth.
Well, thank you so much, Alpa. I think this is really the most important thing, the role astronauts and astronauts flight play in providing really hope to people and inspiration to people who are suffering. So thank you very much for this. Sirisha, yesterday we heard already your very inspiring story, how you wanted to become an astronaut and finally became an astronaut. What would be your advice to young people that would also like to follow your footsteps and also become an astronaut?
Of course, thank you for the question. First of all, I was also one of the people fangirling over Rakesh when I met him a couple of days ago and had Mike actually take a picture of me and Mr. Sharma. And Mike also was 2011 is when I think we started working together, and LA was one of the first astronauts I worked with and a mentor. So I do find it incredibly honored. It's such an honor to sit amongst this panel. I would say in terms of advice, everybody's journey is their own. I think many of us have said this on the panel. Find your passion. Because you're going to be working very hard, but if you're not excited about it, you're going to be miserable. Make sure what you're doing is something you are very passionate about and that really excites you and makes you want to wake up every morning and go, give it your all. And I always say, it's okay to be the first, but make sure you're not the last. So you can make the first footstep, but make sure you keep the door open for many others to follow in your footsteps. And especially for women, we just passed 100 women in space last year, which is incredible to think about. Out of the 700 of people, over 700 people that have gone to space, we just passed 100 women last year. And when I flew, I think it's still in the 60s, and the I was not prepared for the number of messages from young women that didn't necessarily say, oh my gosh, I want to be an astronaut now too. It was, wow, I want to be an engineer. I want to be a physicist. I want to pursue some of these STEM fields I didn't think that women belonged in. And I think that's the key for people, adults in the audience as well. Sometimes it's easy to inspire, but the hard work comes after that in creating an environment where people feel like they belong so that they can continue to pursue their careers in a way that really matters.
Well, thank you very much. We are so blessed to have you as the only female astronaut on this panel here, but I think the message is very, very clear that increasing the diversity also amongst the astronauts in future is a very important thing, and you are a perfect role model for young people, of course, and as you say, not everybody who initially wants to become an astronaut will become an astronaut, but if they choose then also topics like STEM topics, and there's so many ways to support astronaut flights as operators, as engineers, as scientists, as physicians. Thank you very much. Michael, I mean, you had such an outstanding career at NASA, and now you are leading private space flight, commercial space flight with Axiom, and you are such a strong supporter of the IAF. You are at every of our event, and every time you come, you are telling new exciting stories to our delegates and the audience. It's really great. You have led and trained several first-time flyers, actually, from Israel, India, Turkey, Saudi Arabia as well. What is the advice you are giving first-time flyers when they are preparing for the mission?
Well, first, let me echo Ceris's words and say what a lovely pleasure it is to be on this panel. I've been on more than one panel with a lot of astronauts, but this may be the most interesting, diverse group, and it's a pleasure to be on stage with all of you. So we have a lot of training that we go through before these flights, as you can imagine, whether it's the Space Shuttle or the Soyuz or the International Space Station or the Dragon, and pretty much it's a very solid system that takes care of all the advice. Now, I can offer some tidbits about how to prepare to what your body is going to feel like when you first get into microgravity, how to float around carefully, how to use the bathroom, things like that. But the advice that I think is the most important is to enjoy yourself. When we get on board the ISS, it is work, work, work. It's really hard to take a moment to inhale and just absorb what's happening. Go spend some time in the cupola to look at the Earth as we go by. Every 90 minutes, make one revolution. It's a very important piece that it's very easy to skip if you're not really conscious about that. I wish I had had that advice from my crewmates the first time that I flew. They told me how my body would adjust to microgravity. They told me all the things about the training that I'd already learned from all the instructors, but it's really important. We're very privileged up here to have had the experience that we had, and it's something that you really need to work at to sort of internalize, because otherwise you can get very caught up in what you're doing to do the science for your country or even doing outreach to the people of your nation. Don't forget to enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks. I've never seen an astronaut on a station or in space that was looking sad. It's always kind of smiling and excitement. Hey, Dan.
Can I
Yes,
add
please.
Many ask about fear, right? Astronauts going to space, what are you afraid of? And so first of all, I want to say that go with Mike. I mean, he is so confident, right, Alper? He gives you all this confidence. You're sitting up there 3 hours before launch, and you hear the rocket being refueled, the valves opening, all kinds of strange noises. You hear nothing from the ground emission control center. And then and he's quiet and peaceful. That means that we can also be quiet and peaceful. And that's so important during a mission. I think the biggest fear we had during the mission, you want to say something about that?
I was going to add that you were so peaceful that you took a nap.
Yeah. So the biggest fear during the waiting moments before launch is that it is canceled, because you work there's such a build-up, there's such a preparation that you really want it to go on, and you've seen so many launches before you scrubbed at the last moment or the last hour. So we're really expecting this to happen. And then the countdown comes. And there's a guy in the mission control counting down in a very peaceful way, 10, 9, and we're shouting the numbers in the Dragon and all excited, and he's very calm. And then really the experience of the launch is much more smooth than expected. The movies always show it very shaking, but it's not. It starts very slow, the G builds up, it's a very pleasant liftoff. 3 minutes later, Falcon 9 separates and returns to Earth, and MLA tells us, welcome to space, now you're astronauts, we can go back. But the whole mission is in front of us, and it was exciting.
Well, thanks a lot for this insight. And once again, congratulations to the first ever private space mission, actually. I mean, this was a totally new model for space access. How do you see the significance of this?
For us, for me as an Israeli, a bit like Alper and Haza, I was starting from a lower point because our first astronaut did not survive. He launched on the Columbia 2003 and did not survive. And so the sentiment in Israel was negative for human spaceflight. So the government was completely not promoting new astronauts, and the private initiative came as a surprise, as a happy moment where the government could join and not lead. And that was a very successful plan. They joined, the government offered many experiments and scientific activities and joined in the mission. So the commercial leadership of a mission is exciting because you have the choice. You build your own mission. You decide what you want to do. And I'll give one example of something that no government astronaut has the privilege to do. I did an artwork which is sit there on the station during work hours and don't do anything. And take a video of yourself. I don't know who knows Marina Abramovich. She did that in museums in the US. But I tied myself on the ceiling. And during the work hours, everything was going on in the station, and I was just not falling asleep. Why do you tell that? I didn't fall asleep, I didn't meditate, but I was conscious of what was going on and watching it, and that was one of the top experiences in space, is actually to spend this very valuable astronaut time doing nothing.
That's great. That's great. Great privilege. Thanks for sharing that. I would like to ask Angad. I mean, you are part of this next generation of Indian space flyers, astronauts. How does it feel to train for a mission that will actually mark a new era for India? And what was the main surprising aspects or most important aspects so far on your journey?
Thank you for having me here, and I would like to first of all thank my parent organization, the Indian Space Research Organization, for coordinating this along with IAF, and to be here amongst this illustrious panel is a great moment. Yeah. So talking about our space program right now, we had 2 interactions, one with children and one at the Indian Institute of Technology, and talked about it briefly. I feel to be a part of a space program which a country is single-handedly spearheading, even when it is not fixing or it's not matching with what the rest of the world is doing, wherein there's a lot of collaboration which is happening in human spaceflight before people can venture, is a big thing in itself that talks deeply about the kind of commitment the country is making. And as all of us are aware that India is not about being the first, I have done this, and all those things. But it's all about, whatever we learn, whatever we achieve in this journey of ours, we want to share it with the world. In this space program, it's a very, very unique space program. Of course, things like space, especially human space flight, they take their own time. But I'm really amazed at the approach which my space agency is taking, wherein there are a lot of activities which are planned related to human space flight, as all of us are aware. Uh, in the case of ISRO, they have kind of telescoped a lot of activities, wherein we can see that we have a human spacecraft program going on. Docking has been proven in parallel. The capability to go to the moon and come back to the moon is in progress in parallel, these are the same technologies which will eventually take the human being all the way to the moon. We also have the Bharatiya Antariksha Station program being built in parallel, and to top it up, the next generation launch vehicle, which will be able to carry heavier and bigger parts to space, which is essentially and largely a requirement of the human space program, is also underway. So if you see, this is a four-pronged approach, four parallel activities happening, and it's the same set of people who are continuously switching and doing the same thing. We are not we are not very, very luxurious in the way that we can devote different sets of manpower. So to be a part of this program, in which I will have probably the first human space flight happening, and the Indian space station already there in orbit or about to be in orbit, it's of course a great feeling. The journey so far has been very, very exciting. Being an astronaut is a different thing altogether. I'm completely aware that all the other panelists have already been to space, and I'm just taking the baby steps. I especially take inspiration from people like Sirisha, who against all odds have not junked their space dreams, and they've still managed to reach. As far as space experience is concerned, I believe, barring me, the rest of the panelists, they may be differing in the kind of space experience they have, but in terms of the quality that is required from a space aviator, all of them are same, and I salute them for that, and I have deep respect. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing these insights in your journey. Kobi-chan, I think it is the first time that you are attending an IAF event, and we are so happy to have you here, of course. You were the first space tourist through Blue Origin, and of course, this was exciting for everybody to see. Attending an event like this one, how important do you see this for you to promote space activities to the public, to the general public, to the youth, to the next generation?
So absolutely, thank you for the question. I think we've been talking about this over the course of the 3-day conference, but what's important is that it's definitely the first IAF event, but in India, as the country that we have with a lot of people, a lot of schools and universities, I've had the privilege of going around and talking to many of the next generation. They might not all want to be scientists and astronauts, but they are passionate about what they're doing, and they're very, very passionate about the little things in life that we talked about yesterday. So I think that it's important to realize that it's not just going to space, and it's everything else that puts that person, female or male, to go to space, and you have a portion to contribute to that, and that's sometimes more important than the actual person going to space and coming back. The mission can be 12 minutes or it can be 100 days, but all in all, there have been somebody somewhere has contributed who is not, more often than you would know, recognized for what they have done for that person to be on that rocket on that day to actually go to space. And I think it's very important for the next generation to realize that we had a lot of people coming up to me and asking that I want to be an astronaut. But then we had some who were like, I don't want to be an astronaut. There's a girl here, I think her name is Ria, and she's making a satellite box, a little tiny satellite out of Ahmedabad, and she's in the exhibition down there. And she was just saying that my goal and my dream is to make this accessible to every country to be able to take to space. It's not about when can I go. It's about when can my, vision of this material be accessible to everyone to go. And I think that's very important. I think they should realize that the little that they're doing here will impact at 100x or maybe more up there. And sometimes that's all it takes, right? But we, I think, somewhere forget that we have to appreciate all the A to Z that comes in for the launch or for the space exploration to be actually possible. So I think that the message would definitely be to follow your passion, would definitely be to don't stop at the little things. That little thing would be the big thing, which would save somebody's life up there. So.
Well, thanks a lot for being here and for sharing your experience and your advices with the delegates. And we certainly look forward very much to welcome you also to our IEC in Sydney later this year as part of the IAF astronauts chapter. I've prepared several more questions, but I want to switch it to the numerous questions I'm getting in on Slido here now to answer your questions. First, question to Mike. What difference do you find between flying with NASA on the shuttle versus Axiom mission?
NASA on the shuttle, was that the question?
Yes, NASA on the shuttle versus Axiom mission.
Well, there's a lot to unpack with that question. I think, let me start with the similarities. They're both around the same duration, usually about 2 weeks or so. I would say the shuttle timelines are even more specifically programmed so that when we launch, we already know what we're going to be doing for the next 10 or 12 days, minute by minute. And so we end up practicing doing tasks for practice on Earth as part of our training, whereas learning skills, which is on a space station flight, you generally learn to do skills, not knowing exactly what the task will be. From my standpoint, as a crew member on a shuttle especially, you're quite concerned about your timeline. What is the range of your duties that you're going to be doing throughout the mission, again, minute by minute, day by day. Whereas on an Axiom mission, and it's changed a bit from when I flew with Eitan on AX-1 to when I flew with Alper on AX-3. But we have realized that it's probably better for the Axiom commander to be more of a helper, an assistant, a counsel, as opposed to having our own program. So whereas Eitan, when he had a question about something, often I was already busy doing my task and he would ask another ISS crew member. We try not to be too much of a burden on the existing expedition crew. And so we've changed the model so that when Alper had a question, I hope I was a little bit more available to you to help. It's quite, in some ways these missions look very similar. When I say these, I mean an Axiom private astronaut mission compared to a NASA or ESA, JAXA, CSA mission to the ISS. They look very similar from the outside. The activities are quite similar, which is mostly science investigation and reaching back to the countries of the crew members. But internally, they're a little bit different in the way that they are my crewmates, but they're also my customers, and my job is really to make them have, first of all, ensure their safety, but also have them fulfill their mission and to have a smile on their face.
Yeah, they sure have. There are several questions actually to Angad about the inspiration that brought you to try to become an astronaut. So what drove you to put in your head to become an astronaut?
Okay, one of the basic inspirations that I had to become an astronaut was, of course, what is present here and all the other people who've already gone to space. I have served in the Indian Air Force for almost 16 years before I got an opportunity to get into the space program. Even before I had got selected for the space program, when I was applying for the selection process, I had a small inkling. I didn't know a lot about space. I didn't know a lot about what the astronaut community is exactly. But as a commoner, I had an outside feeling that here is a place wherein I will have two or three things which I will be able to do. One of them was to become a very, very humble human being, to have a kind of a global perspective, to become a mascot of our entire planet Earth. That was one thing which was there at the back of my mind, that I will be able to represent the entire humanity if I manage to become one. And the second thing, now coming to the slightly less philosophical, was I would have a very, very bright opportunity to develop myself and my capabilities and my knowledge in multiple fields. I would be definitely developing myself academically. I will be developing myself in all the qualities that are required in extreme environments. I will learn a lot about teamwork, about collaborating with people across boundaries, religions, no discrimination of any kind. And in the end, I will feel more human. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question here about the psychological effects during the flight and after the mission. Anybody who wants to jump in for this? What are the psychological challenges? Rakesh, maybe?
I would just say
Aitan.
one of the important training issues of mental preparation is preparation for failure. Because you go up with a load of responsibility, expectations of scientists, of children, of artists, and your chances of succeeding in satisfying them all are very low. So one of the mental preparations is to prepare for failure.
Rakesh?
Yeah, so what I'd like to say is that everybody who's been up into space to date, and a few of them are sitting here, all of them have experienced the so-called overview effect. And the strange thing is that the overview effect has been similar in everybody's case. I can say that with confidence. And the way it goes is that obviously, like Prince Sultan bin Salman bin Abdulaziz of Saudi Arabia first mentioned that the funny thing is, on the first day, you're looking at your own country, and then you start noticing that there are no boundaries. So that helps you see the earth as a single entity. And then you start seeing the degradation which is going on, and that wakes you up to the possibility of environmental degradation. In my own flight, I've had the occasion to see a part of the Burmese, now Myanmar forest going up in flames. And then from those heights, you could also make out that the plume of smoke which was rising and which was clearly visible, due to the upper air winds, was moving east across many other countries. So that tells us that pollution really is no respecter of boundaries. And therefore, it's in everybody's interest, we need to make sure that the environment which we are enjoying, which is life-giving for us, needs to be protected. And it's the same, if you look at from the outside, how thin the layer is. I've not seen that myself, but I've read about it. And those astronauts who were privileged enough to go to the moon and return from there have seen it. And they've reported that the Earth looks more gray and less blue than it did between the first and the last moon return missions. So these are the things which go through your mind, and absolutely everybody, therefore, starts worrying about the only home we will have thus far. And Carl Sagan, of course, says it beautifully and very powerfully, that this is where we got to make a stand. So as we move forward and we are getting ready to set up societies in the moon initially and later Mars, I think this is the learning which we got to take with us Instead of creating another far-off hell, I think we should start by recreating heaven, which we already are a part of, and we are, I think, busily destroying it. So this is my hope, and this is what I feel. All of us feel. We've come back with the same kind of feeling.
Yeah, you hear this from all the space flyers coming back. Sirisha, you want to add something?
Yeah, it's one mental preparation I actually did not prepare for, was that this mindset that spaceflight is not your peak. It's a platform to go on and do other things. For me, having dreamt of going to space my entire life, I did, after going the highest I've ever been, I had a little bit of a crisis on what to do next. And it is a mindset change that, well, this is an incredible, incredible experience, incredible journey that you're about to embark on. It is the first of many things that you're going to do in your life. And it's not the highest you're going to, actually, it might be the highest you go, literally, but figuratively in your life, you can use the spaceflight experience to do even greater things. And it's a mindset I actually did not prepare for and learned the hard way afterward.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe Gopichan and Alpa and Haza, you can comment on this question. What was, which flight event caused the maximum level of discomfort? No discomfort at all during the space flight, I expect.
Definitely, in different stage of the flight, there is different feelings. In all our preparation for our flights, we got so much of simulation and preparation for the flight itself. So to make us more confident about the machine and the knowledge that we gained, so that anything gonna happen during the launch itself, we have fully 100% confident in the machine. There is different system that's gonna rescue us. But probably I think. Coming back from space is a little bit scary because it's like a falling stone, you know? It's like, so it's more like, I would say, you are just falling from sky with the sort of control, but, and there's only parachute that can decelerate everything, that the speed you are coming down there. So it was a little bit for me, I would not say scary, but interesting, especially I remember with the Soyuz experience, when especially coming from weightlessness to experiencing 1G or like acceleration during the re-entry. It's up to like 5 Gs, but because you are coming from weightlessness, you feel that more than 5 Gs. You feel like it is like heavier, and you think, I prepared for this. Why it is feeling heavier? Because you are coming from weightlessness. And then when the parachute opened, it just rock you, you know, just because it's opening, and then just the whole capsule just going for right and left. I remember the commander said, Alex Avchinin, he said like it's in Russian, he said like Gorky Park. It's like a roller coaster. So it feels like a roller coaster, but it was something that we expect. And then you saw the flames outside from the capsule. But inside we are safe and in a good position, and the impact itself, it was a little bit expected, but heavier. Couple of astronauts like relative to that, they said it's more like you are sitting in the front of the traffic sign. There's like a big truck coming and gonna hit you, but you are expecting that hit. So it felt like that. So it was nice, but it feels also good because you are coming back to Earth. So that was a great feeling. So probably that was more dynamic, I would say, part of the flight for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Kopichan, I have another question here as well. I would like to add this to this. What was your most unforgettable moment, and what was the most discomfort?
I'm not sure if I would say it's really discomfort, but to piggyback what Haza said, is that I think during the launch of New Shepard, we don't wait 3 hours, but we wait about 2 hours, right? And the expecting the unexpected is what you need to be prepared for. Mm-hmm. That's what they don't teach you in training. They don't teach you in training. We went into a hold, I think it was 8 minutes before launch, and they don't teach you to prepare for a hold. Mission control doesn't tell you how long the hold is. They don't prepare you. So I think it's very important to make yourself comfortable that the unexpected can happen anytime. It's not just during the flight profile. It can happen before, it can happen after. The landing definitely is like a truck, like he mentioned, but you're very happy because there's nothing worse that can happen after that. You're already on the ground. So no matter how hard it is, you're back to earth. So, and I think the most unforgettable memory would be, piggybacking off of this, is you train for so many things, but it's not the exact same in the actual, when you're experiencing it. When in ascent, the rocket goes up and then it turns and it tilts and it's on a trajectory. But the simulator doesn't do that. The simulator is just there to simulate what's happening. But when you're actually there, I felt for a second that I was falling out of my seat. Because you never realize how big the angle which it's tilting at is. You're busy looking outside, you want to enjoy the view, you want to do all this, but there's so many other things happening, and I think that itself is beautiful. You have to want to enjoy it. And you said you have to have fun. If you forget to have fun, I don't think you'll remember the best moments. You're going to try to remember what was nice, rather the whole flight being nice in an entity itself. So.
Thank you. Alpa, did you want to add some discomfort and unforgettable moments?
Not about the discomfort, actually, because what we call discomforts and what might be taken as a discomfort in many's mind is actually a nature of our lifestyles and background, what we have been doing in the aviation as well. So when we don't take it as an area of risk, when we don't focus it to get ourselves stressed about it, you start to enjoy. Because mind and the body reflex is already prepared and constantly making all these iterations in the mind to be ready for the unexpected. However, psychologically, you are ready to enjoy those first moments that you will experience for the first time in your life. And I remember the very first moment that I unbuckled from my seat in order to prepare the cabin for the operation, right after the launch. And after I completed what I was supposed to do, I immediately started to use the 3D dimension, to start enjoying the 3 dimension and the freedom of being able to move inside the space. And I remember the very first sentence that Michael uttered. He said, I think you already forgot, you already missed doing aerobatics in an aircraft. So it's an amazing, moment. And anything that you enjoy over there is already dominating what could be taken as a discomfort. So I always tell that whatever a playground for a child is, the space is the same for an astronaut. Thank you.
So you're all grown-up children. I have one question here, which I would like to address to Etan. Did your journey to space provide you with any new perspectives, and how has it affected your daily life?
It has affected my daily life. What was the first question?
Well, whether space flight, the journey to space, provided you with any new perspectives.
Okay.
And how it has impacted your daily life.
But my personal life was affected in a way. Before I was very deeply involved in impact investing in developing countries with a venture capital investment fund. Then I stopped that completely, moved to Houston, started training about 1.5 years, deeply involved in preparation for the mission and all the content of it. And then I came back, got used to gravity again, went back to the office, and found that everything is perfect without me. So so I didn't go back to business, basically. I continued getting more and more involved with Rakia team, developing this outreach potential of using space as a tool to attract and to inspire next generations and research and philosophical thought groups of how and whether, and is humanity restricted to Earth? Is this vision of bringing or reproducing humanity on another planet feasible? So these are very questions that I deal with today.
Thanks, Eitan. Mike, I think you're the only one amongst all of our distinguished panelists here who has not only done an EVA, but who is a record holder in EVA time. So I have one question here for you. What is it like to do an EVA, to be outside the station?
Fantastic. I'm going to go back to the previous question, or my answer to the question about what my advice is to first-time flyers, which is to enjoy yourself. That is even more difficult when you're doing a spacewalk, because if the timeline inside the module is very tight and strict, outside it's even more so. We have a very limited amount of consumables, meaning the duration of the EVA cannot exceed a certain time, and we have a long list of things that we have to do in that time. So it's hard to combine the fact that you are a human satellite going around the Earth at 8 kilometers per second, and you're trying to drive a bolt with this glorified cordless screwdriver. I mean, these things they clash a little bit, and it's very difficult to think of both at the same time. So unfortunately, you spend almost all of your time thinking about driving the bolt and not about the amazing view that if however good it is from inside the space station or in a suborbital flight, it is that much better when there's nothing between you and open space but this very thin polycarbonate visor. So the one time that I did get a chance to enjoy it, we were doing a test of this device that's attached to the backpack, which an astronaut would use to rescue themselves in the case that they were somehow detached. We're always attached to the structure with a steel cable. Somehow that cable broke, or if you fail to attach it properly, however unlikely that is. In the old days, the shuttle, when we did spacewalks from it, could basically go chase you down, like driving a car to pick somebody up. But the space station is too big to maneuver like that, so we have to figure out a way to get back there. So this device has some thrusters that we basically drive ourselves like a jetpack. And we were about to do a test of that, but we were waiting for some lighting conditions because it had to be filmed. And as we came up over Mexico from the southwest to the northeast, we came up over the Caribbean, and I was waiting to be released by my crewmate who was attached, had his feet restrained by the robotic arm, and he's holding me, and we're ready to go, but we have to wait. So we have basically nothing to do for 3 or 4 minutes except look around at the view. And of all the places on Earth, I think one of the most remarkable is the Caribbean, with the colors of the sea, especially close to the islands where it's shallow and you see the greens and the blues. It's spectacular. And this image is really burned in my head, and that was the one time that I could really enjoy that magnificent experience of being outside the spacecraft.
Well, thanks for this exciting insights. I have another question that goes a bit in the direction of your cooperating with the support of robots in space. Interstellar, the movie, showed an interesting dynamic between the astronaut and an intelligent robotic assistant. What are your opinions on something similar in real world? So how far are we already to think that robots can assist astronauts in space? Who wants to take this one? Hazar.
I can think about a couple of experiments on board the station, like Simon. It is the ESA experiment. It's related. There's a floating robot that it's more psychological, interacting with the astronaut. It's still under experiment. There is another one from JAXA. It's Interpol also. It's floating robot on board the station. And also Astrobi is another one. So all of these are like experimental, like things that they are doing on board the station currently to explore how we can use robotics on that aspect. Other than that, there's when you say robotics, there is different way of looking at that. Like the Canadarm which is outside the station, that grab a couple of vehicles, or helping us when we are doing EVA as I would say third arm, or like moving us from different places to another place outside the station. And if we think about it, in future we need more autonomous, more I would say AI implementation to these type of robotics, though, so that we can focus on something else while the robotics can give us more like help without interference with the humans. So yesterday, actually, I was visiting one of the universities here, IIT, and they show us a lot of things that are really amazing in terms of how they are using robotics implementation on that aspect. So that was really amazing to see here in India, and I think that is something that we need to implement more in human space flights.
Thank you. I have another question here that goes in the direction of comparing training programs between the established programs of NASA or Soyuz training versus training for private missions, for commercial missions. Maybe Mike, you can give some, and then also maybe Shirisha or Gopishan from your perspective.
Yeah, so I had the privilege of flying on Soyuz, and for that, and for the long-duration mission on the ISS, later I spent about 1 month in Houston and 1 month in Star City, just outside Moscow, for about 2 years. So I spent, like Hazak, quite a bit of time, and Rakesh, of course, in Star City. And I would say there's a quite different philosophy toward training between the two systems. I would say the Russian is much more theoretical, how things work from a very design perspective. I remember, this is a sort of an anecdote that American astronauts share with each other, that they actually taught us how a relay worked. And the American approach would be, I don't really care how the relay works. All I care about is when I flip the switch, something happens. So it's a little bit of a different philosophy in terms of the depth of knowledge. Now, I think that if you have a lot of time, the Russian approach is quite thorough, and you really understand the fundamentals of how things work. The NASA approach is much more practical. So we do a lot of simulations. We interface with the machine more as a system rather than component by component. And I think it also reflects a bit, it won't surprise you that the Russian system is a bit more centralized, where mission control makes a lot of the decisions, and the crew are expected to execute those decisions sort of without thinking too much about it, whereas on the US side, the crew has a lot more input into how procedures are written, how the timeline is produced. So, you know, each of the programs is very successful, and both have a lot to be proud of, but the approach is somewhat different.
May I add
Thank you. Yes.
difference between the different entities that we trained in? We trained a lot at NASA, which is a big organization, computerized, paper, lots of books and papers and tests and exams. SpaceX is paperless, so you train there only on computers and hands-on. And then you go to ESA, which is a very, very multicultural. You have to adjust to different accents, Italian, German, French, of the instructors, but it's a very open environment, much more than NASA. Just for example, when you go to the SpaceX repair of the Dragon systems, 4 nationals wear a different color cap so the cameras can see where these spies are walking around. So very strict in the US, and in Europe we found it much more open. In Japan it was very efficient with the Japanese JAXA, with a special phenomena that after you complete the exams and everything, destroy everything. So we had a lot of experiences, and with Axiom itself, because we were the first, they were very flexible. They were trying to adjust and adapt to all the requirements of all the crew members coming from different environments, and they were building the capacity to support different desires of new astronauts.
How does that compare to New Shepard training?
And then you have the other side, which is weekend training. It's so, but I honestly think that we're already there, if not yet. But it will entail that somebody was asking me that, do I have to do engineering or do I have to do physics to be an astronaut? But the generation that we live in today, you don't need that anymore, right? You have autonomous vehicles, you have all these guided systems which does everything for you. Whether if it's suborbital, I don't know how long it will take to go to something like this, to the ISS or orbital flight. But I was talking to Jared Isaacman, who you know with NASA, and he was describing that we in this decade will achieve at some point a non-educational engineering background candidate to be able to put on a rocket and strap him and take him up there because of the technology and everything that's advanced today. And for that, the training that is required is more, I would say, psychological than physical. You don't need to be a fighter pilot. You don't need to be a pilot. Forget fighter pilot. You don't need to have all the maths and the physics that from birth, you've been drilled into. Oh, if you have to go to space, you have to be A, B, C, D, E. It's not required anymore. I don't think it is. And I think that we will see, this generation will definitely see autonomous flight, completely autonomous flight, whether if it's to the ISS or not, but very close, right? And I think that that's important to realize that how much we have advanced in, a little over 100 years from the first flight, right? So from the Wright brothers, which is incredible, which is really incredible. And if we've come so far, most of it in the last 2 decades, then the next 80 years is just a cakewalk, is what I see. So.
Well, thank you very much. We are running out of time, but I don't want to. I have still a lot of questions, and I'm sure you'll be still available also for the autograph session this afternoon, where people can ask you some questions. I would like to finish with a quick lightning round and ask every single of you to, because we are here at the Space Exploration Conference, and we've asked these questions to others. Finish the sentence. The future of space exploration is... Who wants to start?
Bright.
Bright.
Here.
Shirisha.
It is here.
It is here.
Exciting.
Where?
Exciting.
Exciting.
It's collaboration.
Collaboration.
Is all about accessibility.
Accessibility.
I would say together.
Together.
I think it's going to be cultural.
Cultural.
The future is beyond the sky.
Thank you very much. Please give a big applause to all this distinguished panel to ask you to come in front to do a group picture.